Hello, everyone. Hope everyone's having a great Wednesday. If you're in the UK, if you're anywhere else, it might be another day. My time, it's 11:30 a.m. Also, if you're in another country, it'll be a different time. Right, Brian Hooker. What do we have to say about this guy? He is absolutely terrible. Um, he's gotten away with loads and loads of things in the past, including his last job. Um, he's playing the dumb card that he can't do this and can't do that. But Brian is a very clever man, especially when it comes to electronics. He knows what he is doing. And the Ashley's Banfield's video I've got to show, um, she proves that what he knows, and it's very insightful. But as we all know, Lynette went missing on the 4th of April. And after he got released from police custody because they didn't have nothing on him to charge him for harming his wife, they've sort of like released him. And then the next day he went back to California, I think it is, where his mum was meant to be ill. And then he went back to Michigan and lawyered up. So, he's obviously knows he's guilty because since the first telephone call with Kaylee, he hasn't been in contact with her since. And it seems ironic that he disappeared off the island the day before Kaylee comes over with her boyfriend. So I've got lots of things to show you. So it's all bits and pieces. I tried my best to put it in order before I came live, but unfortunately, I didn't get the right thing. So I want to just play. Where is it? Let me find it. No, I can get rid of that tab. I'll find it. So this is the first voice call he's done, which I got off X just now. Where is the X? I think that is it. And then we got some text messages that he did. So if I share this screen, just check that you can see it and make myself smaller so that you got more room to see. Right, so make that bigger. Just double checking you can all see me because there's nothing worse than me playing a video and you cannot see it. But I don't believe he's innocent. I think he's guilty as hell. He's made so many errors and mix-ups in his storyline. It's unbelievable. And the dry bag is still confusing because on the picture Ashley showed with Lynette sat on the sunbed and Brian hunched over, it looks like to the left of her was an aqua coloured dry bag. But I'm wondering, and I did say this to Ashley as well in an email, that if the two dry bags were put together, so like maybe she put his inside his dry bag, if it's big enough to do that. I don't know. But there is so many things, and everyone's pointing from sort of like evidence that they don't think Lynette actually was on that dinghy, or she was on the dinghy, but she didn't bounce off the dinghy, and that she hasn't been in the water. And now the authorities are searching the land because they believe she may be on land. But the only thing I don't get with her being, say, like being unalived on land is how much time did Brian get to do it on land? And also in Ashley's video, she shows the logbook of when the soulmate went offline. And that is really intriguing. So I will be doing that one, but let's get on watching this one.
You just gotta take all these little things for granted because almost all the time it works. And it did not. There's a lot that didn't work.
Oh, what happened? Bear with me. Technical glitches. It didn't do that earlier.
Everybody's up, really. I mean, she was the best part of this relationship. Frankly, you know, it's incredible. I mean, like in the literal sense, she basically just bounced off the dinghy in the middle of a little blow, like 20-some knot winds that popped up, and single thing failed. Every single thing. We weren't wearing life jackets. It was sundown, and the sun set like basically 10 minutes after she fell over. Dinghy key were with her because it wasn't clipped to anything or anybody. And she had the spare dinghy key in her dry bag, which was with her. The wind blew us apart so fast that I think she tried to swim back to the sailboat, back to our sailboat, which was probably.
Now, with that, he says he thinks she swam to the sailboat, the soulmate. How can he say he thinks? Did he not see her trying to swim in the direction of their anchored sailboat? That's another thing I don't understand.
I don't know, 1,000 yards or something. I yelled to her that I lost an oar, and I threw the anchor out and anchored the dinghy, and I yelled. I couldn't see her anymore. It was the moon had not risen yet, and the waves were doing their thing. And I saw her, I think, twice. I threw her a flotation cushion that we used to sit on the dinghy, right after she went in. But I couldn't tell if she got it or not. We've been looking for the cushion too. But it's amazing how small a person is in 2 and 3 floaters and 25 knot winds. So after an hour of calling her, I could have never heard her voice. By the time I got the anchor set, I was probably a quarter to a half a mile away from her, and I decided I had to go get help. But I could not get to the island. One paddle. It was many hours until I landed on Marsh Island, about 4 miles away. The cops got there like 4 a.m, but they didn't get searched at 4:30, and we didn't get rolled out until 5. And by then, she had been in the water for 8 hours, and by midnight, I was already freaking out. So the dinghy, I landed in some crazy spot.
So if you listen there, don't tell me it's gone back. He said that she'd been in the water for 8 hours. So if they sort of like left Abigail K to go to their dinghy, that's only like a 15-minute drive from where they were anchored up. So if they left at 7:30, 7:45, they would have got there by 8. Then he was saying that she was in the water for 8 hours, and by midnight, and the timeline doesn't work out. Let me go back to hear that bit again.
Dinghy, I landed in some crazy spot, like a movie. It was a little tiny 50-yard wide lagoon full of rocks, and I beached it, and the cops, of course, I landed in some crazy spot. She had been in the water for 8 hours, and by midnight,
see what I mean? She'd been in the water by 8 hours, and by midnight, he was already freaking out. So for it to be 8 hours, they would have had to sort of like been in the water, 6 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 5 o'clock. So that does not work out, it doesn't add up together.
I was already freaking out. So the dinghy, I landed in some crazy spot, like a movie. It was a little tiny 50-yard wide lagoon full of rocks, and I beached it, and the cops, of course, they're thoroughly investigating me right now. So they came and tied the dinghy up. I just got the dinghy back today, and got the boat back to the harbor from where the anchorage was. So I have to rig some switches so I can single-hand it back there and conduct my own searches. It's a story. They asked me today, the cops called me up and asked me how long I would be in the Bahamas till I get my wife back. And
That's a load of rubbish, saying that they asked him how long would he be in the Bahamas for, and he said, till I get my wife back. But 2 or 3 days after he was questioned by the police, he left the island straight away.
so
Couldn't get out there quick
that's my
enough.
goal. I canceled everything we were going back home for, and I'm going to renew my visa and stay here. By day, I was keeping a very stiff upper lip because she is strong. You know, I mean, she's a regular swimmer, not like a athlete or anything, but she's determined. And it was a cascade of failures, and there's something I'm never going to forgive myself. We stayed too long. We left too dark. All kinds of no life jackets. I threw the dinghy out last, the anchor out last instead of first. Can't really explain it. You know, I just know that I hate this boat, and if she doesn't come back, I'm never getting on the boat. I'm going to sell this and never go here. Every single thing that's good on it came from her. Every cute idea and awesome idea. I just but she really created. Yeah. So wear fucking life jackets, and we just kind of take all these little things granted because almost all the time it works, and it did not. There's a lot that didn't work.
So what do you make of that? Let me just get rid of this. Let me stop sharing this one. I don't think there's anything more on here. So what do you think of that, guys? Oh no, don't say I've deleted the wrong one. And then we have the text messages as well that he sent to a friend and to his daughter Rosie. And it's weird how Rosie hasn't offered to do any interviews. I know you don't have to, you don't have to do an interview, but you would have thought she would have wanted to try and help sort the story out. At the moment, it's Kaylee and her boyfriend that's doing all the talking. But I would like to see Rosie do at least one interview. Just one. But here's where is it? That's Ashley's one. That's that one. I could get rid of that one. So it must be here. So this was when he was released from the police station. And if you notice how he's smiling as well, which I think is absolutely terrible that he just happens to be smiling in this.
This morning, Brian Hooker is a free man after Bahamian authorities released him from
I'll just check you can see this. Yeah.
Custody without pressing charges in
See,
his wife's
smiling
disappearance,
bloody
not answering
chest.
questions as he walked out of the police station.
Thinking, oh, I'm smart. I'm smart. Oops. That's something different. So let me stop sharing that one and close the screen down to small. So all that story goes on to say is the mystery disappearance of American tourists who allegedly fell off the dinghy was traveling with her husband has gripped the US as speculation has mounted over the truth behind his story. I don't believe his story. As I've said in most of my other videos I've done, this story has more holes than the colander, like a sieve. I don't believe him one single bit. And to me, he's the type of person that won't take no for an answer, and he won't stop till he gets what he wants. And, if the police don't hurry up to rearrest him, to detain him for more interviews, I can see this conniving so-and-so getting away with it. I really, really can. So it goes on to say Brian Hooker, 59, denied harming his wife of 25 years, Lynette, after previous accusations of domestic violence had resurfaced. Let me share this screen so you can see the pictures. There we go. So that's what I just read to you. And then that was being released without charges. I don't know if that's a video. It's just that's the map. Brian's route overnight. So if they left here, well, the yacht was docked there. Then after drinks, they left here. And then Lynette apparently goes overboard on number 3. So instead of Brian, so say, drifting all the way over to Marsh Harbour, why did he not go back? Why did he not go back? It just doesn't make sense why you can't make your way back to like a 15-20 minute, maybe half an hour drive compared to 4 hours floating. It would have been easier that way. He said he had one paddle. Whether or not that's true, we don't know. He said the other one was broken, but if she did disappear at sea, he could have used that paddle to hit her with or to push her off the dinghy. It's so twisted, this story. It really is. I hate seeing pictures of him now. It's like he's getting underneath my skin. So that's the pictures of them. That's on the dinghy, which we've seen. That's the map. So police took him in for questioning in the Bahamas, where she vanished, but was released without charge on April 13th. He returned to the US the next day, despite vowing in a TV interview that he wouldn't give up trying to find his wife. Now, as the search for Michigan mum Lynette reaches day 14, where it's longer than that, the Sun is breaking down all the evidence in the case with 5 experts explaining where it goes from here and if there could be a murder charge. Brian and Lynette were out on the water on the 4th, heading back to the yacht off Elbow Cay in the Abaco Islands when she allegedly fell off the 8-foot dinghy in rough conditions. Brian claims the boat keys went overboard with Lynette cutting the engine and leaving him to paddle back for hours to shore. She reportedly fell about 7:30. So he was saying she fell at 7:30 p.m. But by midnight, she had been in the water for 8 hours. So go 7:30, 8:30, 9:30, 10:30, 11:30, 12:30. So that's 5 hours, not 8 hours like he claims to be. And then he didn't report her missing till 4 a.m. on the 5th of April. After roughly 7 hours battling. So 12 o'clock, he said he left to go back to the thing. And he arrives on the island about 4 o'clock in the morning because that's when he gets up there. So it says after spending roughly 7 hours battling strong currents to reach the boatyard. Now, from midnight to 4 a.m., it's not, 7 hours. He faced intense scrutiny since his wife vanished and was brought into the Bahamas for questioning. But the police ran out of time to question him further, so they had to let him go. Domestic violence reports from previously that we've heard of. The main evidence of the story so far. Police said the search and rescue effort for Lynette's body is now a recovery mission rather than after weeks she disappeared and she's still not been found. Experts told the US son that authorities would not necessarily need a body to charge her husband if they believe he's guilty of a crime. Now, I've seen it many a times where people have been charged with murder or harming their partner if, excuse me, I did this yesterday. I was fine before I came online. As soon as I went live, that's it. The tiredness comes over me. It's something to do with the side effects from my breast cancer, the treatment I had, and also my fibromyalgia as well. And I am also full of a cold. So all that's battling against me at the moment. So as I was saying, you can be charged of murder without a body if you're the only suspect that's in questioning to deal with the person that has died. And because he says he was on the dinghy with Lynette out sort of 20 minutes away from Abago Cay, he would be classed as the only person. So that is how he could be charged of murder without a body. So criminal offense attorney John W. Day told the US right now the public it's based on public information. It's unclear whether authorities have enough to even get past the probable cause stage. Well, I think they've got reasons for that. One, because of their arguments and domestic violence, and what else was I going to say? It's gone. I had it in the top of my head about what else he could be, what he's done that could be classed as probable. So, without evidence pointing to foul play, rather than an accident or voluntary disappearance, charging someone would be premature and risky. Brian was in the Bahamian police custody for 5 days, roughly Wednesday the 8th of April until the evening 13th of April. His attorney told reporters after his release that authorities had no evidence against her client. Well, now there is loads of evidence or things that don't add up. Police seized digital evidence, including the cell phone related equipment, as part of their investigation. I don't know. I presume they got his cell phone. Excuse me. Ooh. But I did hear in one of my videos that I did, I'll have to go back on that Ashley's one. I am pretty sure it said that he had like 20% battery life on his phone, yet it managed to last him till he got to the other side of the island. If my phone's down to 20%, and he also used his phone as a torch in the dinghy to look for Lynette because he said it was pitch black. Now, if it's like my phone, if it goes down to 20%, it dies really quickly after that, especially if you're using sort of like a torch or you're trying to call people. So forensic evidence can take anywhere from a few weeks to over a year to process. I don't know how it can take a year to process evidence. If they have enough people working the case or bring in the FBI, I'm sure it would be, it's been weeks now, so I would say months rather than a year. So I'm hoping the FBI do get involved. Excuse me. That's very unprofessional, but unfortunately, I can't not, I can't prevent myself from yawning. It's just one of these things, and I do apologize with it. It's not very professional of me. But I can't, I could read and then I can take myself off screen, but it's just smaller. No, it's not scrolling. So I can't do that. So let me come back. Oh, where was I? So, while physical act of imaging a phone copying data can be done in a few hours, The actual investigation is often lengthy and multi-stage process. Should Brian have left for the US? Brian was free to leave the island because he hadn't been charged. But a lot of legal experts say they would have advised him to stay longer after being released from police custody. So why didn't his attorney, was it Terrell Butler? Why didn't she tell him he needs to stay, even if it's only for a few days? But, he's still a suspect in the investigation and it continues going on. He has the freedom to move around and is allowed to return to the US. That doesn't end this investigation, although leaving the Bahamas at this point would certainly send a message, regardless whether he's innocent or not. Leaving now, even though he is allowed to do so, would certainly raise suspicion, in my opinion. Brian claimed he wants to return to the Bahamas to help to look for his wife, Lynette. So why he's been gone over a week now. I forget how many days it is. So why hasn't he come back? He had probably a couple of days to spend with his mum. He obviously went back. Ooh, excuse me. I might have to cancel this live and redo it later. I just cannot help myself from yawning. I don't feel tired, though. That's the only thing. I don't feel tired. The criminal attorney, Brett M. Rosen, said he would have advised him to leave the search to the professionals. He said if he has the financial means and the personal advice to fund a private search efforts or personally return to assist, he can do so. So this is like the disappearance timeline they've done. So the 4th of April, Lynette allegedly falls overboard. Approximately 7:30 at night. The 5th of April, Brian reaches shore at 4 a.m. to report her missing. 5th to the 6th, large-scale search in the Bahamian authorities, US Coast Guard, and Lynette's family is notified. The 7th of April, flotation devices recovered. Try and drink more water, see if that helps. The 9th, Lynette's family raises concerns regarding Brian's history and that of abuse. The 10th of April, investigators are granted a court extension to continue questioning Brian while he remains in detention. Then April the 14th, he's released without formal charges as the legal detention limit expires. He vows to stay in the Bahamas to search. The 15th of April, the search intensifies, used with the cadaver dogs, signaling a firm shift to a recovery investigation. 16th of April, Brian leaves the Bahamas for the United States. Lynette remains missing and the investigation goes on. So there's a few pictures. I don't want to keep on seeing his face because it annoys me. So, a lot of people are saying, he is guilty. And let me just come off this one. And then the text messages he sent. I will get to Ashley's video in a minute, which is really quite good. So I'll just read out these text messages. Just check you can see it. Yes, you can. Let's go back. Said Lynette fell off boat. Yes, brother, I'm afraid so. Off the dinghy in some choppy seas on the way back to the sailboat. The wind blew me away from her and she swam towards the sailboat. We quickly lost sight of each other pretty quickly as it was just about sundown. I drifted and tried to paddle with one oar for the next 7 hours until I washed up behind the shore of the next island over and was able to get some help finally. We are still all searching. A lot is going on right now, but I thank you for checking in on us. Being on the news is a huge burden, and I just had my first ever news organization call me for a few minutes ago. And his mate says, "You're in our prayers." He goes, "Thank you, friend. Our family is in hell right now. Search and rescue just called to say they had searched a bunch of areas today and no join. They're going to be back out tomorrow, but a storm is coming on Wednesday." Well, I don't think I actually heard a storm. And also take note of his logo here. This is important, and I will tell you why in a minute. I need to find that picture as well. So this was his logo on his messages, okay? "Thank you, friend. Our family is in hell right now." We've done that one. He goes, "Please keep us informed. If we can do anything, let us know ASP. I know the pressure on you is hard, and I'm praying hard, and if you need to talk or anything, let me know. Do you have a place to stay on the island, or are you staying on sailboat? Any way I can help, please ask." So that sounds, genuine from someone that is really concerned and believes you're innocent at this stage. "Good morning, Daniel. I thank you for reaching out and supporting us. I got back to the Marsh Harbour yesterday after the fire department brought my dinghy back. So I'm on a morning ball at the place called Connacht." And then he goes, "I'm staying on the boat. My sister and brother-in-law are flying in later." Well, I didn't see them flying in, and we haven't heard any interviews from them, same as from Rosie. This morning to stay a couple of days, and I will probably stay with them for a night or two, weather happens, but then I plan on heading back out to the site and continuing the search. This most will likely to be definitely need help in the future, but I just don't know what it is yet. I'm trying to take it a day at a time and keep the faith. Search and rescue is out again today before some big winds come tomorrow. Where was it? Tomorrow. And then his mate returns back, says, "We are here to help any way we can. Currently in Shreveport, but our boat is on the north shore of the lake of Pontchartrain. We was actually going to buy a sailboat this week and bring both boats home to Shreveport. If you need anything, I will help where I can." Then Brian goes, "Congratulations on your sailboat, Captain. I thank you for your kind offers and will be in touch as events unfold." Brian Hooker's message to his daughter now. This one here, I wonder what was said before that, because even though it says she was active 2 hours ago, you can't see the previous messages because you can imagine what it says. "Whatever it takes to help either one of you," even though she doesn't really know either one of you. "I wish I could be there with you, but I have to be here for now. I love you both. Love you, Dad." So that makes me wonder what the previous conversation was about. That they've craftily taken off. And then at 10:24, he replies back, "Rosie, I love you too." So you can clearly see those two messages and ones before were all on the same day. "Rosie, I love you too. Kylie, I just took a melatonin in attempt to get some sleep. Me, Aunt Jen, and Uncle Brett are going out on a boat tomorrow to continue searching. I may try to contact you if I can, but I may not be back before you go to work. So shoot a call or a text when you get on a break for updates, etc. I'm not giving up. I don't want to give up. I don't want you to give up either, ladies." And sort of like emojis, kisses, and hearts. And then, "Good morning, girls. I miss you today. Me and Jen and Uncle Brett are going out on the boats to look for Lynette. We are hassled at dinner by reporters last night and followed down the road and decided to post a statement on my Facebook page. And so his relatives did go out there, but we just didn't see them with him. And then that was just the updates. And then he says, I'll update a statement on my Facebook page, which I also found strange because I looked up his Facebook page and he had on his profile, if you click on it, it says that he joined Facebook in 2010. But as of 2 weeks ago, the Facebook was updated and there's only two main photos on there now. And it looks like he probably did a lot of cleaning up when he went on Facebook, just so that he's not showing any criminal activity, probably. Our family has lots of support from people all over here, over the world, but there are, of course, always some haters. Yes, because your story does not add up, Brian. And I urge you just to keep your focus on what's important. Lynette and our family. They're saying ridiculous stuff, and I will do some pushback on that when I can. So, that would incline to me, he would probably have done another interview. But, we know he's not coming back. But I have locked down my Facebook page, except for the statement. You can still reach me through Messenger or other ways. You are always reach me. I love you and I'm not giving up or stopping. Now, there is no reason, if I just go on his Facebook page a minute, because you can quite easily message him. Because, he might have shut down the Facebook, but people can still actually message him. So let me just bring up Brian Hooker. Brian Hooker. Which one was his one? That's Crime Time. Where's his one then? I've lost it now. So if you can see this one, I'll just show this page. It's what you find as you're trying to find things. So just check you can see. So on this one here, on US News Spotlight, case closed. Police finally discovered Lynette Hooker's body floating 47 nautical miles from the accident. This is clickbait, guys, because it's not breaking news. They haven't found Lynette whatsoever. Even though they're showing this, they would not actually show her body floating on the water. They just wouldn't. And it shows yellow there. She wasn't wearing yellow. And then all this is all done just for them to get clickbait and for people to follow them. Plunder, go to her. She's a very good YouTuber. What was that one? The smoking gun text. Brian admits to Lynette was swimming towards the boat and private messages sparking the haunting question, why didn't he save her? A bombshell new detail emerges from Brian's own phone. He messaged a friend saying his wife was swimming back to the dinghy. And yet he stood and watched her vanish. Was this an accident or a cold-blooded wait for death? If she didn't die on land, I reckon it was a wait for death. And, he probably dumped her way too far from the boat, all the dinghy, but the water wasn't very deep. You could stand up in it. This is like the text messages going on again. I don't know what they're trying to point out there, though. And Plunder again, she's covering this story. Everything. Ashley, she's doing really well covering this story. She went out there as sandals on the ground, as I call it. Last of the people to see Brian before wife Lynette vanish reveals their boozy evening and what caught his eye. And then insurance motive. Brian Hooker and Lynette Hooker recently argued over $250,000 life insurance policy. Lynette's daughter, Carly Ellsworth, says these arguments have created tension in the family, a crucial financial detail that's still causing investigators to consider the true motive. And you can move it up there, but whether or not it is insurance stuff. And then this is when Lynette got beaten up by Brian. That's when they found the dinghy. Just trying to see if there's anything different. And then allegedly, this was Brian Hooker taken at 7 p.m. the day Lynette went missing. So if she went missing at 7:30, like Ashley commentated, if he's walking there at 7, is Lynette already on the dinghy? Because they apparently left at 7:30, and this walk down there would only take 10 minutes, depending how fast you're walking. He's a tall man. So I'll have longer legs, so his walking width will be wider than some people. So, it makes you wonder if Brian was going to the dinghy first, then Lynette follow him, because we know they had an argument, and when they argue, they tend to keep their distance apart from each other. So that is, really interesting on that one. And that's when Kylie arrived, to try and find some answers. I really don't like seeing his face. She looks very sad there. And I feel sorry for Kylie, It's such a sad story to go through. There's Brian with his yellow dry bag. And that was on Hopetown for eBouquet. So we can play this one. Let's see if it's got sound.
So this is the final.
A minute. Let's go back to the beginning and see what it says.
This is your final chance to get your side of the story. You sure you don't want to get your side of the story?
So that must have been his sister-in-law. Brian checking his phone. Makes you wonder why he's not walking right beside her.
This is your final chance to get out of the story.
So, you can see that. Good. Right, so I'll come off this one and we'll start playing Ashley Banfield's one. And then I can give my voice a rest. I'm sure you'll all be glad to get to Ashley's one. So this is to do with Brian Hooker's alarming past. GPS tampering claim blows open new questions on Lynette thing. So please go to Ashley's site and subscribe if you can and join her channel. Same as with my channel. I don't think I've actually mentioned it yet. If you could like and subscribe and share my videos, It also helped me to get into the YouTube algorithm. And also, if you fancy buying me a coffee, there's the details on the screen as well. And if you want to email me any cases to cover, I'm more than happy to do the research into it and cover that story for you. So even though I've rebranded my channel name, I'm still keeping my email just because all my subscriptions are on the True Crimes email. So if you email me at True Crimes 2026, True Crime Files 2026 at gmail.com, and then that you can email me with questions, any cases you want me to follow, anything, I'm happy to receive it all.
I got a lot to tell you.
But here we go.
Like so much. I am still following the Lynette Hooker story. I like to call it Lynette's story because Lynette is still missing. Brian Hooker has amscrayed from the Bahamas where he said he would never leave her. And
just one thing, I will try not asking too many questions in between because her video is like an hour and a half long. So, I don't want to, even though I said we're deep dive into this, I don't want to make Ashley's video any longer.
Till he found her. He swears she bounced off the back of his dinghy in terrible seas. Bullshit. But, one by one, we're able to tear his story apart. If you are just coming into this story, welcome. Hi. Please subscribe. It's nice to have you here. And then go back through my other episodes because we have discovered a lot of stuff that does not add up. Every single day, we find something new that basically flies in the face of Brian Hooker's story about how his wife disappeared in the Sea of Abaco off of Elbow Key in the Bahamas. I couldn't even in an hour list all of the things that don't make sense. But in this coming hour, you are about to hear some things about Brian Hooker. We're going to go back over some of the things in his story and some ways that we believe it could be possible to turn his live-aboard yacht called Soulmate into a ghost ship, which can't be seen, can't be tracked. We're going to talk about that in just about a minute. There's also a couple things I need to tell you about. If you've been following the story up till now, you might have heard the story of the blue dry bag.
Right. I will quickly interrupt. When I said about that logo, take notice of the logo that he was using. He has changed it since. Notice what the symbol's saying? Is he giving out a subtle hint, thinking no one will notice this on his Facebook? Picture of a man and woman, obviously shouting. Problem, sailboat, solved. So arguing, solved, accident at sea. Bye-bye, Lynette. This is harrowing. It is really not very nice to show. And one of Brian's friends actually sent this to either one of the reporters or even to Ashley herself. That is soul defying. It really is not nice, shown on his profile. Like I showed you earlier what his profile was. And then I said, remember that profile, because later I will show you how he's changed it. And he's changed it to two people shouting, a sailboat. So problem solved. How callous is that? Is he really thinking he can get away with blue murder? He's really annoying me. He's really got under my skin. And I hate it when people get under my skin. So we're going to come back off here a minute and go back to Ashley. Like I said, that's not Ashley's, is it? Yeah, it might be. Bear with. There we go.
Location on the shores of Marsh Harbor the morning after he drifted 9 hours after losing the wife off the back, The weird thing is that witnesses on the shore said he had a yellow dry bag that morning. But the rescuers who got him on board, welcomed him onto the rescue boat to say, let's go look for your wife. One of them remembers an aqua-colored dry bag. One other rescuer remembers a royal blue, slightly bluish colored dry bag, kind of tracks with the aqua. Another one can't remember the color of the dry bag at all. And another one remembers a yellow one. So there is a big mystery when it comes to the dry bag, but we wondered if maybe a couple of dry bags might have been inside one another, maybe one in another or two.
That is what I emailed to Ashley, and before she even did this video. So I'm wondering if she's using my idea of why there's a contrast to who's seen what color bags
in another one. And we found a blue dry bag on board the dinghy that we showed you a picture of in a prior episode, and thought, I wonder if this is the dry bag in question. I went back to the rescuer and I asked that very question, and he said to me, that's not it. Absolutely not. And he remembers the texture. It was like a more plasticky textured dry bag, not a loose sort of ski jacket material dry bag. So he has a good memory of that royal bluish dry bag. Still trying to piece together the story of the dry bag and how this fits in. And I think we'll get there at some point, but for now, it's just another piece of the puzzle floating out here till we find a spot where it fits. Also, you are about to learn a couple of things about technology. The amount of technology on board Brian Hooker's boat, with Lynette on board as well, and the kinds of things he was capable of doing with such technology. Because he swore up and down to his friend, who he could not stop talking to after Lynette bounced off the back of the dinghy. Swore up and down he didn't even know how to load WhatsApp onto his phone. Guess what? Brian Hooker was a telephone repairman and installer at AT&T. Yeah, that's just the least of the information that I found out about Brian Hooker's technical savvy. Wait for it, because Brian knew a whole lot about how to mask your position electronically. I'm going to get to that in just a moment, but it's going to fry your loaf. When I learned the things that Brian has done in his past to mask his location and mask his position, I nearly lost the top of my head. But you're going to find out in just a moment. I'm getting there. Also, got some information about his oar pins. You know, he said, I was trying to row and one snapped off and I lost it. Yeah. I've been saying to you, I have not been able to find a receptacle anywhere in the pontoons of that little dinghy, because I just couldn't see them in any of the social media. So I don't think he ever used used the oars as oars. I think he used them as maybe paddles at some point, but we have found them. Finally, the reason we couldn't see them is because they were covered up by those seat floaties, the same seat floaties, the green of which he threw to Lynette.
Anyone watching, come on in. Feel free to start chatting and share this live so other people can join in as well. Thanks for watching.
He says, trying to rescue her, but I don't know if she ever got it. It's not even a rescue thing. It's just a swimmy thing. You can flutterboard with it, but it's probably not going to keep you up. It's got some weight and girth and heft to it. So maybe he thought, in his story, this won't fly out in the wind like a life jacket would. Nevertheless, there were 2 life jackets in the bottom of the dinghy. And I've got news about those too. More possibilities that show you are full of shit, because there might have been something on those life jackets that instantly could have attracted attention. Get into that in a moment. Before I go any further, I just want to mention that you guys have been amazing at bringing us tips and leads. And if you know anything about this case, about the lay of the land, if you have video or photos from April 4th, at any point looking off into the sunset off of Elbow Key towards Lubbers, you may have caught all the boats that are in anchorage in front of you. And there may be an incredible clue right there on your photographs. Drop dead serious info@gmail.com. Drop dead serious info@gmail.com. We will keep you anonymous. But if you think you may have a lead, or if you know of anybody who's in the Bahamas in Elbow Key area at that time on that date, sometime around 7 p.m. to 8 p.m. the night before Easter, Saturday night, April the 4th, you or your friends might be sitting on a gold mine of forensic information. You may have caught a crime on camera. You may have caught a crime on video. You may have seen something that you didn't realize. Maybe it's a flare. Maybe there was no flare. Any information you may have, again, drop dead serious info@gmail.com. You have been incredible sending us in your information so far, and we are so thankful. Also, if you want to be anonymous, CGIS Tips. That's an app you can download for anonymous tips to the Coast Guard. I know they will be extremely thankful as well. One thing is they cannot share with us. So if you want to send to us, you have to send to both of us. You can't send it to them and expect that I will get it. So you do have to send to dropdeadseriousinfo@gmail.com, or you can go to CGIS Tips as well and make sure you send it to me too. You got a QR code on your screen too, so that should help. Also, there's something to the social media pictures of Brian and Lynette's dinghy that we didn't catch before, but my guest tonight pointed out to me, and he's going to tell you why it's so important. You've probably seen the little tiny electric engine that they use. Well, there are two different ones. We have discovered two different engines. By the way, my mom is wandering, or you'll hear her, and she might be wandering in the background at some point, so never mind. Anyway, so there are two different engines on the back of the dinghy, one from several years ago that is sort of a lighter gray color, and then one that's more recent that's a black color. There's something important about that you're going to find out shortly. And I think it's really significant that you learn about the way sailors behave and the things that sailors keep, and why you can't be a hoarder as a sailor because you don't have enough space, but there are things that you definitely will hoard, and you will learn about that in just a moment. Then I also learned something more about the speed and capacity of that electric engine. Up until now, I've been telling you it's about 2 to 4 horsepower, right? Yes, but it can go 2 to 3 miles an hour, and you'll have a lot of runtime. Way more than I said, around 4 hours. Oh, no. More like 30 hours if you're only going 2 to 4 miles an hour. If you're going 4 to 5 miles an hour, you can go up to 4 hours. There's that 4 hours that I thought about, but there's another speed you're going to hear, how fast you can go and how many hours of runtime you're going to have at that. It all matters because he says he floated for 9 hours, and I keep wondering what the hell were you doing in the 9 hours, because you didn't float to Marsh Harbor in 9 hours. It's impossible. The wind, the waves, the current, the tides, none of that would have been. You would have probably hit lubbers with the wind, and you sure as shit wouldn't have taken 9 hours to hit Marsh Harbor if, in fact, the wind was even blowing as hard as you said it was blowing. So wait until you hear about the specs on that engine. It's really important. By the way, remember that whole business about not knowing the tides that Brian said in his phone call to his friend Blaine Stevens for fewer hairballs?
Sorry.
And
I was trying to find out when her advert.
could you load WhatsApp on your phone? You're a telephone very close to Lynette. Said to me that Lynette, in one of the episodes when she was leaving Brian Hooker, because this happened many times, friends, family have all said the same thing. She would leave him and allege abuse and had photographs of bruises and say, I'm never going back, and then went back. One of these episodes when she left Brian, she confided in one of my sources at AT&T who said she was in tears. And she said that Brian had blown through his 401k and she just didn't know what to do. So now we've got the potential, at least in that moment in time, and this is about 4 years ago, where one report from a source says he's blown through his 401k. Lynette's got a sizable 401k. Her mom said $650 or more $1,000. So I always follow the money. I always look at the money. I don't say it's always the end all be all, but it's another piece to the puzzle, right? Lynette's got a sizable 401k. Sources who were close to Lynette who said in tears, I've left him again. He's blown through his 401k. That's not good. It's not a good fact. In the business, we call them bad facts. But Brian's not charged with anything yet. He was released because they didn't have enough evidence at the time in the Bahamas to hold him any longer. That doesn't mean you don't get more as you keep looking into things. Tick-tock, Brian. Anyway, so this is the significance of the background of Brian Hooker. super smart with technology, super manipulative with technology. So I guess the question is, when you're telling your friends you don't know how to load WhatsApp on your phone, are you masking your actual abilities to mask your yacht? I'm going through a million different scenarios in my mind, right? I'm going through something that Blaine Stevenson, a very good friend of Lynette and Brian's, who is no longer much of a friend of Brian because of all the caca that he's been fed in this long voicemail that Brian long conversation that he recorded with Brian, that doesn't add up. There is a period of time where Brian Hooker and Lynette Hooker's soulmate yacht went offline. Okay. It stopped its connectivity with satellites. Now, yacht folk will tell you that can happen. Sometimes it's cloud covered, it's temporary. Sometimes it's
This bit's really interesting because it shows something totally different to give you another aspect of maybe what happened. It is really, really ear-shattering when you hear what she says.
problem with the satellites, and everybody's affected. That doesn't seem to be the case here. But the times that Brian's and Lynette's satellite disconnected, and I'm going to show you the actual ship tracking chart, and my guest Blaine is going to explain this in a moment, is right around 9:30 at night on Saturday night. 9:30 at night.
There you go, there. So they stopped at 11:53 in the morning to go onto those two islands. But then at 9:29, and you think he apparently was, on his way to the other island.
Saturday night. If you believe
Right
Brian
here.
Hooker, he's already been floating for an hour and a half. He's already on the way to Marsh Harbor. Never made it back to the yacht because my wife bounced out, took the key, and the oar broke and floated away. And what do you know? Couldn't find her. It was too dark and waves. The sea was angry, my friend. I'm floating off to Marsh Harbor. Somehow, an hour and a half after that, boat lost connectivity with satellites. How? Why? Sometimes boats run out of power and they just shut down. Okay, got it. But you're about to hear from my guest who says that was never the case with their yacht. It's never happened in the past. So why suddenly that night? Went offline at 9:30 at night and it came back online. Want to take a guess? 8:30 in the morning. You know what was happening at 8:30 in the morning? Brian Hooker had been welcomed onto the rescue vessel from his marooned location way over on Marsh Harbor, and they came back to his yacht. They brought him back to his yacht for the first time since catastrophic events the night before. He boarded that yacht with one police member from the Royal Bahamian Police Force, and the two of them went down below for an hour. He's picked up at Marsh Harbor at 7:30. It takes about 20 minutes or so to cross over to the boat. So now it's 7:50. They board till 8:50. They're down below for an hour. Well, that would encompass the 8:30 switched back on. If that police officer's asking him questions and he says, oh, hold on a second, I just got to look over here and maybe get some lights and switch on the power. Whoop, it's back on. Just another piece of the puzzle.
See what I mean? This puzzle is getting harder and harder to fill in all the missing pieces. We always say when you do a jigsaw, there's always one piece missing and you always discover it as the last one. But this has more than one piece missing. Like I said earlier, this story has more holes in it than the calendar. It really does.
Puzzle, my friends, just another piece of the puzzle. But a more skilled yachtsman than I, mariner than I, is about to explain all of this for you and make more sense of it than I can. But I am telling you, that is weird AF. Is it possible? And if so, how? Can you turn your yacht into a ghost ship, but keep your location for all eyes to see in one spot? if you game this out, it is possible. And that's about to happen. Blaine Stevenson is about to explain to me.
Brian is cleverer than he lets on he is. Brian is very knowledgeable. He knows probably a load more electronic stuff than he lets on. You know, he's not a dumb man, like he's trying to portray a profile of him being, oh, I'm just a dumb sailor. I don't know nothing about electronics. I don't know nothing about tides and things like that when you're on a ship, or not ship, a sailboat.
Using a dinghy, could you scrape the electronic guts up out of the yacht, place them in the dinghy, anchor the dinghy, put some power on there, and go ship your way to do what you need to do, maybe in deeper water, or just maybe with some power? You're going to hear all of that in just a moment. There's something else I want to show you. TMZ obtained some video of a fellow sailor or motorboat operator. I don't know what kind of vessel this person was on.
I also did this. I think it was my last video I did of Brian Hooker. I did the same report from TMZ.
But he was wearing glasses with cameras. And I don't know if they're Google or they're Meta, whatever they are, he was recording from his glasses. And he's calling over to Brian on Soulmate from his yacht, okay? And what stood out to me about this is this was recorded on Monday, April 6th. So it's only been, a day since all this happened, right? And so you would think you'd be a bit apoplectic that your wife is still maybe floating out there or marooned on a shore somewhere. And so this neighbor boat is speaking to Brian, and Brian is having a conversation about trying to bring up his anchor and move his boat on his own. It's usually a two-man job. Someone's got to be out at the windlass, getting the anchor up, while the captain is at the helm, kind of backing up and getting off anchor. And it's super hard to do it on your own unless you've got your own electronic windlass switch at the helm, which they didn't have. And that's what Brian is kind of explaining to this other boater. But what I noticed was that the boater seemed more empathetic and upset about the loss of Lynette than Brian even mentioned. It was almost like business as usual. I got to move this boat. Take a look.
The fire department bringing when we lost Lynette over the side, I paddled over to Marsh Island and I landed on some crazy shore there, and we couldn't get it yesterday. The fire department bringing the dinghy to me. So this afternoon at high tide, or this morning later at high tide, then I'm going to go to Marsh Harbor.
Okay.
You guys going to be around at all?
Yeah, we'll be around if you need anything.
I'm going to ask the guys, but I might need one person to help me unanchor. I've never done it by myself. I don't have any switches to talk to.
Okay.
But yeah.
What time do you think you're going to do that?
And they be here around 11 or around high tide.
Okay.
I'm going to have to get into Marsh Harbor because what was the lake thing, and then I'm just going to come back and keep looking. I don't know how long the freezer is.
Wow, so sorry. We'll come help you here around noontime if that's okay.
You're here.
I don't know if this is a reflection from the guy's glasses, but here it looks like a person that's on the boat. Might not be, but it could be. It's just weird how it just looks like a person, but this guy was wearing those recording glasses, so maybe it's a reflection off the window. I don't know, but I did notice this the other day.
Keep an eye on me and maybe step on if there's a right here.
Sure.
Could be just a chair.
My apologies. I just had to go. I got to get out, and I can't leave here without a foot of water under me.
Gotcha. Yeah. Okay. All right. I'll see you.
Oh, my thanks to TMZ for that. That's just, I don't know. To me, it's really telling that the guy with the camera glasses is like, sorry, man. And Brian's just like, yeah, the wife fell overboard and I need to move this boat. And I'm only a one-man show here. It's like, it's only this is Monday. Lynette went out Saturday night and Brian floated all day Sunday morning, all night, and was marooned. And then they're looking all day Sunday. And this is just Monday. So I don't know. Everybody grieves differently, but you're not even grieving at that point. You're still in panic mode trying to find your wife. There's so many things that should have happened. So many things. Because the amount of equipment that Brian Hooker has on board and the knowledge that Brian has of the equipment that he had in his hand, his own phone, it don't add up. So with all of that in mind, I had such an insightful conversation with Blaine Stevenson. Blaine, as you may know, if you've been following the story up till now, Blaine and his wife Marnie are also cruisers, liveaboards. They have been on their boat for years. They haven't even tied up to a dock in 2 years. Currently, they're sailing down in St. Martin, and they are struggling with this because they are friends with Lynette and Brian. Brian actually called Blaine and just sort of dumped out 40 minutes of information, which they were recording because they couldn't keep up writing it down fast enough. But then ultimately, during this long verbal logorrhea, they started to realize what the actual F is going on right now. Nothing sounds right. So Blaine's recording has been the source of so much information for us and for police as well. And he's also a skilled mariner, being a liveaboard. And so I have bounced off so many possibilities, questions, theories, ideas, everything off Blaine. And so with a bunch of the information that I had amassed up until now, I called Blaine. I said, you need to help me sort through some of these things, specifically the ghost ship possibilities, because talking it out with Blaine, it is entirely possible. Here's my conversation with Blaine Stevenson from aboard his yacht as he's at anchor off St. Martin. Quick note from my sponsor. I may not personally have a kitty cat. DS.
They did a immigration check-in, and I made fun of Brian for cutting his hair and looking good for immigration. So I know it's been about 9 weeks.
Any idea what their plan was? Was it a short stop, a long stop? What did they want to do there?
They're like most of us boaters, where the plans are written in tide, written in the sand at low tide. They talked about heading down to Beckway and down to the southern islands where we are. And I feel like that was kind of most of the conversation that I followed on Facebook with them. And I believe in our messages, there was the idea of hooking up down island. And then I feel like in the last few weeks, it kind of shifted more towards they were heading back to Florida.
But they had like a cruiser's permit, right? Like, explain what that is.
So when you check into the Bahamas, and that's been a really big point of contention for like this last year, Bahamas changed the policies and rules, and they had a 1-year cruiser permit for their boat. But they have a 90-day visa for the person. So like when we check into a country, we have to check our boat in separately than we do ourselves. And at any time, any one of these countries can say the boat's allowed or you're allowed, but it's a separate check-in process. But their boat was checked in on a 1-year cruiser visa into the Bahamas.
And they had indicated in Facebook, if I remember correctly, that they were thinking about 90 days and even sad that was too short.
Right. But they had the cruiser permit for a year.
Okay. So there was a Facebook post that somebody else made, and I only can assume that it's a friend of Lynette's because she was kind of commenting back and forth, and it's her Facebook page. But it was disturbing. I mean, it sort of, I'll just paraphrase it. It said, I thought you would have murdered each other off by now, but you both look happy.
Yeah. I mean, looking at the situation now, it's like, holy, I'm expecting to see that person on a podcast or news at some point soon, right? Like, because that was a pretty damning statement. But also, I mean, it's social media. We all make jokes, but I don't think anybody would make that joke about me and my wife. I mean, everybody has their quirks, right? People are going to assume I'm going to fall off the boat because I'm clumsy. But they're not going to assume me and my wife are going to get into a fight. So I think that just shows a little bit more of the history that we were a little blind to.
There's also some talk on Facebook about the kind of technology that this couple had on board. I'll just list off a few things that I've been able to pick up from all of their social media posts. They talk about having a drone on board, and that's going to matter when I ask you about what you can do with a drone in an emergency in a moment. They had a 360 camera that Lynette regularly used. You hold it out and it sort of disappears the selfie pole that you're holding, so it just looks like the camera's above you. They had an underwater camera. I think it was the same 360 camera that might have actually gone underwater. They could shoot themselves out of water and then down under the water, all in the same shot. And Lynette was very social media savvy and good at editing, great at posting. This was not a couple that didn't get tech.
Right. So out here, I mean, we make a joke with me and my wife that we're right in the middle cusp. We're not part of the Young Cruisers Association because we're late 40s, but we're not part of the paper chart boomer generation either, right? That is mad that everybody's out here on social media. They were more tech savvy than we are. They were on the socials before we were. Brian wired up his own solar system himself. I think one of the pictures that you keep seeing in all the news reels is he's putting two PVC pipes together, but that was the structure system for his side solar panels. He had that, I think it's a Garmin smartwatch. Like, you can look at their navionics, their tablets, they had all the equipment. They had more equipment than we have.
I'll tell you what, I've kind of knocked him a couple of times for the comment that I believe he made to you in the big, long, rambling, I think 40-minute message that he was, or at least phone call that he made to you, where he said something along the lines of, and I'll paraphrase, I don't know the tides or the currents around here. I mean, look, you are a live aboard sailor. You don't sail a keelboat in the Sea of Abaco, which is 4, 5, 8 feet deep, when you're drawing somewhere around 4 feet without knowing the tides and knowing the currents. Am I right?
No, you're not going in there and not knowing it. You might be there for a few days and lose track of it. I will say that, right? Like if I've been here for 2 weeks, I know that I'm good at high and low tide regardless. So I'm not looking at the tide today. I'm not knowing what the tide is today. But he was moving in and out of that area that same day. He moved from Tahiti Beach to his anchorage where he was that same day.
Or I don't know if he actually went all the way down to Tahiti Beach with the big boat. I know he said he went down with the small boat, but I do know he was further north at the Firefly Inn and picked up anchor at 11:30 in the morning. And about 20 minutes later was setting anchor, not even a quarter of a mile south down the beach outside the Abaco Inn, at which point you can go even further south and go to Tahiti Beach by the little dinghy and then come all the way back and go with the dinghy to the Abaco Inn. So yeah, I mean, he was traversing the western shore.
I'd be interested to know what you all think about this. If you think he's guilty or if you think he's innocent. What's your thoughts on this?
That little half miles to 1 mile section. Yep. Yeah. And the thing that, caught me and we talked about is at roughly 9 or 10 that morning, the guy who recorded him for TMZ, he's telling that guy he needs help raising his anchor because he needs a foot of water underneath his boat. So he's waiting for high tide. That is 10 hours before he talks to me and doesn't know what tides are. Mm-hmm. And then an hour after talking to me, he messages search and rescue and suddenly knows about the ebb and the flow and Matt Lowe's K and Montage K and all that. So all in one day, he did know tides and currents in a 12-hour time.
I love the part where he knows ebb tide, and it already said, I don't get these tide things. It just didn't make any sense.
Well, again, like I said at the time, when we were recording it, we were there to help a friend, understand. But you can't listen to that recording after 3 weeks of searching for Lynette and not understand that somebody was practicing their story on you, right? Like
It
I
felt
feel
that way
like
to
I was
me.
being used on that aspect. Maybe not to report it and put it out, but I think he was definitely practicing his story and see what would fly.
Well, what seems strange to me, and I've been in this business a few times, so it's not my first rodeo with crime. And if there is a crime here, which that hasn't been established yet, however, there is a criminal investigation. That was verbal logorrhea, if I ever heard it. Most people who are looking for their wife don't just talk for 40 minutes straight about all the things to do with them. They don't have time for that. And to that effect, I want to ask you about the drones. Brian has a drone.
Yeah.
Aren't drones about the best thing that you can tell searchers? I've got a drone. Let's get it up there and search the shores.
Oh, especially if you look at the timeline of events, right? So he was out with search and rescue in the morning. And then search and rescue took him back to his boat, but he still didn't have
He probably forgot all about the drone because it's so small, it didn't matter to him. But like Ashley said, a drone would have been really good to use. I don't know if the Bahama police actually used any drones or not.
So he's stuck on that boat for Sunday night and Monday morning until they brought him back his dinghy, helped him lift his anchor, and he went to Marsh Harbor. How many flights did he do? Right? I mean, I would have had that. If I'm stuck on the boat, I would have got on the cruiser's net and gotten everybody. I can't say there's a single thing he's done since the incident that I would have done. But if he had a drone, he's a super tech savvy guy. I mean, you fly it. You're looking. And I don't know that he didn't, but he doesn't tell anybody he did either. Right?
Well, I can tell you this, that was not ever a part of the immediate search and rescue, because I have spoken to both of the guys who spent time with Brian Hooker on the morning of his catastrophe. And never once did he bring the drone off of Soulmate onto the search and rescue boat and say, let's fly this. Let's go over to where this happened and start flying it. I'll take you guys. Let's fly my drone and look around. He never mentioned the drone. He didn't pick the drone up off the boat at 8:30 in the morning and bring it onto the rescue boat and say, let's launch this. It never came up.
Well, and there was a part of me that, as you were saying that, I'm like, well, if it's really windy, you don't want to fly a drone. But I'm also replaying that interview of the guy who came up and talked to him the next morning. You could hear each other clearly. There was no wind. His boat wasn't being drifted. There was glass. So he could have been flying it then. But he also didn't need to spend an hour on the phone with me. I mean, yes, we're friends. Yes, we boated together. But you can't, for me, when I found out, like, he left Carly a voicemail and then spent 45 minutes on the phone with me.
Yeah, that was uncomfortable. And Carly was uncomfortable about the tone of the way she put it as, well, your mom fell in the water. I'll talk to you later. There wasn't a lot of empathy or panic or fear or worry or concern or consoling. There was, in Carly's estimation, there was next to none of that.
Right. And I don't understand the timing of it all. Like, he obviously had his phone. He says in his recording he has his phone with me, but I mean, I think we're at that point with Brian now where we just dismiss what he says. But we know he had his phone to call Carly, to call me, to be on Facebook Messenger, to message Dan, right? Like, he had this technology available to him. Why was he not using it to get boaters together in the area, right?
How about this? I was just going to say about the technology and his phone before we move on from that. He is a tech savvy guy. Okay. We've already established he worked for AT&T. He was a phone installer and a phone repairman. He wired his own boat. He was extremely savvy when it came to the boat. There's that message that you found from Lynette saying, hey, Brian's busy
networking,
geeking out and networking the boat. You know, like he knows the business of phones, right? And yet he's floating across to Marsh Harbor for 9 hours with a cell phone in his hand that says on the top, for emergency calls only. When you don't have a SIM, all you need to do is hit hello, and maybe it'll cost you more because you've got the American plan, or maybe you'll just get the emergency call you can make even if you don't have a SIM card. That's the kind of guy who would know that.
was talking to somebody from Cricket Mobile because I don't want to speak to things I don't know. But evidently, you can still dial Cricket Mobile to spend money, right? If you want to upgrade your plan, that call is going to go through on a roaming network to get a hold of Cricket Mobile to upgrade your plan to you. The idea of an 8-hour shift, and again, if he did make these calls and he did try anything, he hasn't brought that up. And I think that that would be something that you could easily go to. It's not going to ruin an investigation to say, hey, here's my call log. Look, I tried to call emergency. I know that doesn't show up in your call log, but look, I tried making these phone calls. I tried calling Lynette. It's not.
Can you also show me a picture of your phone that has no SIM card and it says up top for emergency calls only?
Yeah, I did until I broke it. And now I'm using that phone, and I called my carrier, and I'm like, hey, I have this phone that doesn't work from another carrier. I just dumped my phone in the water. Can you turn my SIM into an eSIM and put it on this phone? And it was done in an hour. Now, did I lose all my apps and everything? And I have no clue of previous conversations and all of the stuff.
But you had connectivity. You had connectivity with them.
Yeah. Within an hour.
It's something that a man who works in the business of phones would know if I were a betting man.
Yeah, I mean, especially a guy who, I mean, it's public knowledge. If you look up AT&T versus Brian Hooker, you will see that, among other things, he was terminated for disabling GPS devices in his truck. I don't know how to do that. You know, he knows how to work his AIS. He knows how to work his radar. He knows, you know, he knows more about the electronic side to sailing than I do. I mean, he taught me about that part of it. You know, he taught me to trust my equipment. I do still got to credit him to this day for getting me through a hurricane with his knowledge. So, yeah, I would say he's very tech savvy.
Well, let's talk about that issue about being fired from AT&T or released from AT&T for manipulating the GPS unit on one of the fleet vans that he worked with. That's somebody who's trying to hide his position. That's someone who knew how to manipulate a GPS device to hide his position. If you adopt that into this story, this becomes very disconcerting about what happened between the last photo we've seen of him, which is 7 p.m., possibly heading down to the dock to leave in the dinghy with Lynette, and then suddenly 9 to 10 hours later, washing up on Marsh Harbor with this preposterous story. Let's talk about how one might have perhaps made it to the yacht with his wife, tied up the dinghy, gone aboard, something goes sideways. This is all supposition.
Okay.
I don't know that this happened, but if it did, could you, Blaine, could you make your yacht go into a ghost ship and keep the AIS location in that dinghy anchored to that spot while you beat a path to do something nefarious with your big boat to deeper water?
Your AIS data would require a 12. I would have to know his model number. Okay. But AIS data. And if his is connected through what's called NEMA, right? If it's part of his whole network system on his boat, how it receives its power. If it's I'd have to know if it's Raymarine or Garmin or whatnot. But basically, in a sense, our boats are just 12-volt systems. Some are 24-volt systems, but everything plugs in. I do believe that there would be a logged event of the Starlink being unplugged to be plugged in on the boat, on a dinghy or whatnot, or there'd be an event of it going offline, like your AIS. It would show offline. As far as everything else that you have, that's just systematically going through and turning off your electronics. I can make my boat go ghost mode, yes. To answer your question, I could. There would be logs of it. My Starlink will tell me if I had a millisecond outage 5 minutes ago. It'll tell me that on my phone. So if I disconnect it for 5 minutes to set it up somewhere, that's going to be a little blip it somebody's got to look for it.
Push
You know,
something.
when we look at his AIS data, it shows that he never moved. But if you actually go into the logs on My Ship Tracker, you can see that like his AIS was offline from 9.
Just trying to see if I can find any more updates on this one. Because believe it or not, I've got another video. I didn't want to try and make 2 videos. Once the live's finished, you can go to your settings at the bottom of your screen. I don't know if you can see mine. And you can go playback sound, and you can do the playback sound however long you want. So I will speed this one up a little bit. Let's see if that's too much, because then it's quicker for you guys.
30, I think it was 11. I don't have it in front of me.
9:30 at night, so Saturday night, 9:30 p.m. Suddenly, his goes offline,
Down here.
not to come back online until 8:30 the next morning, which is right around the time that the search and rescue boat sidled up next to Soulmate, tied up, and he boarded his yacht for the first time since the catastrophe. So it just something kind of stinks in Denmark there.
So and for me, yeah, that's obviously.
But the one to look for here is this one here. She comes to this in a minute. So at 12:21, port arrival, Marsh Harbour. 12:34, so not even 10 minutes, stop moving. And then I guess he turns into a ghost ship, doesn't he?
Time since the catastrophe. So it just something kind of stinks in Denmark there.
So and for me, yeah, that's obviously what I hooked up on, is because then I went back through the logs because I don't know what his normal routine is. Do they turn their AIS off at night to save power? But then I went back through his logs of the previous month, and it had never been offline for more than 2 to 2.5 hours.
Lane, they're not supposed to be on board at 9:30 at night. At 9:30 at night, he's already an hour and a half drifting over to Marsh Harbor, never having reached Soulmate. So what happened at 9:30 at night on board that boat when nobody was supposed to be on board for it to go offline, but suddenly come back online when he boards his boat with the search and rescue folks the next day?
Well, that's what I was thinking about when I said that. Do they normally turn it off to save power? I'm not. So then I started looking at, it's been on at nights. So it's not that his battery bank can't handle his AIS staying on all night, right? So it's not, you don't see the routine pattern of it being turned off every night, which means.
So it's only been turned off once or twice since after, or just before Lynette goes missing, which is really self-incriminating.
They leave it on every night, which means that his battery system can handle that load overnight.
It's not going to go off on its own.
It's not going to go off on its own. Now, as far as how the satellite systems work to the AIS, the Coast Guard's going to know way more about that than me. But looking at his log, there is definitely on that night a clear, distinct difference from any other night in his AIS history.
Well, I can't put 2 and 2 together because I don't have that kind of tech knowledge. I have some mariner skills, but not this many mariner skills. I can't understand how suddenly at 9:30 at night, when any other night the boat can handle that power and it wouldn't just shut off on its own. How did that boat shut down at 9:30 at night when he's supposed to be, floating past lubbers at that point, maybe setting off a flare at that point? It's all very curious. And I think one by one, the pieces are coming into focus of how preposterous his story is, Lane.
There's complete groups out there. I mean, we ran into a group on TikTok that actually is the one that found some of this information, right? Like there are people that are metadata diving way beyond my tech level skills. Some were up in Brian's level of tech, right? Because I mean, this is a guy who has an electric dinghy motor. He's gone through a couple of them. Like, so everything about him is wanting to be technology based. He's not your average 59-year-old who's like, give me a 2-stroke. They don't sell those in America anymore. Where's my sextant kind of guy. He is, smartwatch, control my boat with my watch kind of person. And so it's really hard when you live that kind of life to not leave that exhaust, I think is the word you use. For us, I'm not a tech savvy person and I would screw it up if I tried to go ghost, but there's also a lot less on my boat. And the battery logs for me, if I was the investigator, we all manage our battery systems out here down to the hour to know what we're consuming. Can I make water? Can I do a load of dishes? Can I turn on hot water? We have to watch our power systems and what's draining and what's drawing, and that's all logged. And it would be very interesting to see. And what scares me is it'd be interesting to see what his battery system did that night. Was it a slow trickle down, like there was nobody on the boat until the sun came up and the solar started raising it back up again? Or are there power events? Did somebody come onto the boat, have a shower, turned on the water pump? You would see that spike in power. Did they come in, turn on the lights, stuff like that? You can't
turn on the water or have a shower, any of that, right?
Right.
Because normally if I ever got back up on a sailboat after being out all day or even going into shore and back with the spray or whatever, I'd probably rinse off on the back of the sailboat because there's usually like a little, shower nozzle on the back of the transom, or I'd get up and maybe get into one of the little bathrooms and I would take one of the small showers, a quick one because you really conserve the water, but one doesn't matter. It registers.
Yeah. And we set up our boats to where we don't have to do it like you do on charter, right? So when we come back from a night out or being on the beach or whatnot, I mean, we literally walk through the boat, flip on the anchor light if we didn't turn it on before we left, right? Mm-hmm. And then turn on the water heater for both sides because like me and my wife both use separate sides of the boat for our bathrooms. So we turn on the water heater for both sides, so we have hot water. Put the dinghy up, right? For ours it's a winch that would log it. I think his was hand, but he would plug in his dinghy motor that would suddenly start draining power. You would see an event on his power log.
Plug in the dinghy motor. You're right. Again, this is all if they made it back.
If they made it back to Soulmate, there would be
none of that business. Right. None of that business happened with her bouncing out in 2 to 4 foot seas. It's all bullshit. That didn't happen. The weather wasn't like that. So if he did make it back to Soulmate with her, there would be power events in the normal course of boarding your boat and doing the things you normally do.
Right. Yeah, totally. I mean, I could tell you when we boarded our boat last, it's so definitive. Because we have to. I mean, we run out of power. I mean, yeah. I have the same bragging right me and Brian do. We have not been to a dock for the same amount of time. Right?
2
He
years.
has not been to a dock since he's seen me out. We've only been to a dock once since we've seen him. And that was to take a generator off our boat and throw it on a dock and then leave.
Dude, I don't know how you did that. All I keep thinking is, where can I get to a dock to get another tank full of fresh water? And you're somehow not having to do that.
Well, that's partially out of fear because, the only thing that's going to hurt a boat is land. So the more you avoid it, the better. But that also goes to show, like, if he was to have, I've seen a lot of speculation online that he moved Soulmate in the middle of the night. And I'm following that theory to a degree in my head and working through it, but there's no way he's navigating those waterways without a breadcrumb trail on some digital device because he's going to need to navigate. Unless
he knows his way. I navigate at night every night that I'm on the water. From memory, never do I use electronics, ever. Now, that's a lake that I'm very familiar with, but they had been there for 9 weeks. And Abaco was small. And even the way out is not huge. And listen, I got to ask you, though, about moving the yacht, because it's a 46-foot catch. So what does it draw, 4 or 5 feet?
I think it's a sloop, but I just have to be a boater on that one. Single-masted. So
I heard that it was a catch, but gotcha. I'm only going on what I heard. Okay, and so, but what do you think? Draws about 4 or 5 feet?
I think 6.
6 is a lot in the Sea of Abaco.
Yeah, it's a Hunter 450 passage. So I can tell you what the draft is right now.
Okay. So he would have to be very knowledgeable about where to go because there's lots of 5-foot areas.
Yes.
And you can't fight Mother Nature underneath you. If you're banging up against that, you're going to tip over. If you hit your keel on land, you're going to tip over and need rescue. Some people, really struggle with that.
The Bahamas is the land of the bommies.
What's that?
The little rocks underneath, they're marked on the charts. Like, even if the average depth somewhere is 6.7 or 4.5, there's a rock or a coral head that is marked on the charts. We call them bommies, but
bommies.
Yeah,
I call them reefs, but okay. So listen, if he had wanted to turn that boat into a ghost boat, my question for you is this, because I don't know how this could happen, but I know it could in my gut. Is there a way to strip the electronic guts, the finder guts, out of the yacht? And say, put them in the dinghy and anchor the dinghy right down beside where you are, and say, hook it up to a 12-volt battery so that those guts keep going, but in the dinghy, and then pull your anchor up and turn into a ghost ship and go do your business in the dark of night for, 9 hours, then come back, pick the guts back up, all the electronic guts that send your pinging location out, as though you have never left that spot. Your location has been pinging from that spot, just from the bells of the dinghy instead.
I went to type instead of speaking. So what do you guys think on this? And I think he is guilty. I'm not too sure if she disappeared from sea, as my next video will do, but I might have to do that as a part 2, do a follow on from this one, because that might make this video, this live, a bit too long. So it'd be interesting to know what everyone thinks on this. You can drop me an email what you think on this topic, and just title it Brian Hooker and Lynette in the subject line, and then I know that I'll reply to all my messages, even in any messages in chat that I don't see. I will email, reply back to you. It's just nice to have other people's perspectives on this case. There's so many holes in it. There really is. His timelines doesn't add up. And as I always say, to be a good liar, you need a good memory. And Brian obviously is keep on forgetting what times he's already mentioned and how things have happened, because what he told one person to another is totally different. And it's really weird as well, since he phoned Kaylee up to say, your mum's gone overboard. She bounced off the dinghy, been trying to look for her and everything else. How he's not phoned her back since. I don't think Kylie would want to speak to him unless she wants to ask him direct questions like, did you do away with mum? Did you harm mum? Things like that. But I got a feeling at the moment, Kaylee will probably not want to talk to him. There was speculations as well that she might be alive on the island, and she just managed to escape from his clutches because apparently before the trip she had actually bought a plane ticket to leave him, and she never got on that plane to leave Brian. She went on this trip. And people have been saying that she's on the island somewhere, but I would have thought if she was on the island alive, surely she would have made herself known by now. Because it wouldn't even work out to be that if she waited till he was jailed for her disappearance and then she comes back and said, I'm alive, I just need a time out. So I don't think that theory is that she's alive and hiding on the island. If she is on the island, she's not with us. And then my prayers go out to Darlene and Kylie and her family and close friends, because this is a tragedy that was seen to be happening months and months, and even a couple of years ago. I know if you're in a relationship with domestic violence, it is hard, or it can be very hard for you to leave that relationship. I've been there, I've done it, got the t-shirt, got the scars, got the bad memories. But, you have to be strong enough to do that. And whether or not Lynette felt strong one day to do it, hence why she booked the plane ticket. And then the very next day, if she started drinking, she didn't seem as strong. But she should have left him years ago. She really should have done. There was talk that Brian recently took out a life insurance on her. That's typical in many murder cases where someone does away with their spouse. When you look back at it, they tend to have taken out a rather large life insurance on that person, so they can claim it if it was done through an accident or through medical diseases. The life insurance would pay out. But naturally, life insurances don't pay out if that person was murdered by you. So this is, I hope it doesn't drag on too long, like the Nancy Guthrie case. I really don't. I mean, Nancy Guthrie is what, day 88 or 89, something like that. This is the 4th of April. And we're now the 29th. So it's well over into the 3rd week now. I hope this comes to a conclusion sometime in the near future. I wouldn't want to see the forensic evidence take over a year to be able to come to public's knowledge.
The bowels of your boat. Is that doable?
I can speak to Starlink if he had a mini, yes. Completely easy. If he had his anchor alarm as a tablet, which I think they use a pink tablet for their anchor alarm, then yeah, you would just put that in the dinghy. It wouldn't go off. It would show that they were there the whole time. The AIS data would have to go offline.
But it did.
Okay, but you're asking me in a hypothetical situation, can you make the boats go dark? And I'm going through each system. If it's Starlink Mini that runs off 12 volt, or even if his Starlink is the Gen 2 and he has the adapter for it, he can easily plug that up to 12 volts. So his Starlink would show at the same spot. His anchor alarm would show at the same spot. Everything else on the boat would all be personal handheld electronics. So if he put all those in the dinghy, then yes, the only thing I can't speak to is the IS, but the IS during that period of time was offline as far as I can see.
Yeah, as far as you and I can see, because we're mere mortals, but I always assume that the power of the United States government is much better than what we have. I think they've got technology that supersedes what we're able to dig out as sleuthers at this point. I hope so anyway, because it just feels like that's something that could be done, especially by someone who was let go because he was manipulating his location and masking his location on his van with GPS. That speaks to somebody who has the tendency and the know-how to do such a thing.
In the speculation situation, I mean, he would know more than me, right? Like he would be the subject matter expert that we would be asking to this question to if he wasn't the subject of the investigation. And that's the crux of it for me. He knows more about it than I do, but I could see from our systems on our boat how we would do it.
Let me move on to this other topic. And by the way, I keep looking behind you because I feel like, is that Martinique behind you? Like what's your stern looking out back? I can see some twinkly lights behind you.
Oh, it's St. Martin. That is Sandy Ground, St. Martin. Yeah.
Oh, to be you right now.
I know. We're going to be in Anguilla and St. Bart's and then Martinique in the next month. So
take me with you.
Come on down.
Okay. Well, don't tempt me. Okay. The next issue I want to get to with you, I have been trying to assess the ore situation. And you were kind enough to send me the manufacturer's look at the exact dinghy that they bought. And you were kind enough to point out to me that those oars and their pins are proprietary to that boat, meaning you can't just grab any old oar and use it in that boat. You got to use those pins in those receivers, right? Those receptacle holes. Yep. And I could not find anywhere where I saw the receivers for those oars because I was looking in the center of the boat because they're not in. Thank you. Explain the oar situation on their dinghy.
Okay. So the Boss 8.5 dinghy is designed to where the oar locks are backed by the engines. If you look at a picture, which I'm sure you'll throw up on a graphic here, there are two little metal silver pieces on each pontoon back about a foot from the end of the dinghy. On the back.
Really far back, by the way. For oar pins, they're really far back.
And then so you would put those pins in there and you would sit on the bench and you would row it backwards, right? So the front of the boat, the pointy part of the boat is behind you and you would row like that. And the problem I had, and the reason why I started researching this is because Brian is a very good painter. He painted this picture for me of him trying to row the boat, but then the oar snapped. I can picture that in my head, right? As sailors, we can all picture that until you look at his dinghy. And then I'm like, I don't see where the receptors are. Well, because they're covered up by the cushions that they're always sitting on. So then I went to the manufacturer, I found it. Then I went through some old pictures of their boat, and I could see that they do have the pinholes, but they don't have the bench anymore. They took that bench out right off the bat. So then I'm trying to figure out, it's still like, okay, he's telling me the story of how he tried to put the oars into the pin locks and broke one, but how was he rowing it without a bench, without anywhere to sit? And then I started thinking about it too, like if you're looking for somebody in the water, man overboard drills, which are beat into all of us as boaters, you never take your eye off the person, right? So at no point would you want to be rowing backwards towards the person you can't see in bad, like that whole concept then struck me as your boat's not designed for it. You're covered the holes that it would go into. The amount of time it would take for you to get set up to row to break that pin, you would have found your 2 life jackets and your anchor in that amount of time on accident, just moving everything out of the way so that you could do that setup, that picture you painted for me, right? To break that pin in the hole, as he described, he'd have to be sitting on the bench trying to row, but there is no bench. So
I've said you'd have to be on your knees, but that damn anchor is in the way. So that damn anchor that you're trying to move in order to row would be in your mind to throw overboard.
Right. Everything that all the other safety, and every time I see the bottom of their dinghy, there's just there's stuff. I mean, we all are that way. I think I got 2 bags of trash in the back of my dinghy right now. But you're not going to kneel down, turn your back to your wife, put oars in and try and kneel like that when you could just kneel over the front and do it back and forth like you would a stand-up paddleboard.
We talk about also what's behind them when you're driving. You hold onto a throttle of a little engine. We've seen a lot of social media, but you pointed out to me there are 2 different electric engines that the hookers have used on the back of their dinghy. And that would mean there's probably a spare on board because, as you have aptly noted, sailors don't just throw that stuff out. That's critical stuff. It might be down in the engine room. There should be a second engine on board.
Yeah, so I don't know the history of the engine. And I actually found this by accident in arguing in your comment section. Back at the very beginning, when everybody was trying to argue about the key, and you could pull a key out on an outboard and I was trying to explain people it was electric. So I was trying to pull up pictures to show people. And that's when it dawned on me that, like, I'm looking at 2 separate motors and 2 separate social media posting groups here. And so he had one that was more of a torpedo gray and orange color scheme, which made me think it's a torpedo. And then the newest one I see is an NT300 looking dinghy. I mean, I can't zoom in enough to get numbers, but as far as I can tell, yeah, they've gone through 2 different iterations of electric motors. And yeah, we don't throw things away out here. We just don't. Maybe he did. That would be complete speculation on my part, but I don't know. I'd keep a backup.
When you're living aboard, having a spare of everything is pretty handy, especially, something that propels you, an engine. Those are really critical. Not like having extra treasures or luxuries. These are essential. You wouldn't get rid of that. And listen, I'm not saying you didn't, maybe they did, but the chances that there might be one of those spare engines on board, there should be perhaps. And if it's not, that could be a problem. And since you brought it up, you were also kind enough, thank you, to give me the specs on that potential NT300 engine. And I have been saying all along that little tiny electric engine maybe goes 2 to 4, miles an hour. There's actually a couple of different variations on how fast you can go and how much power you burn. So the faster you go with that engine, the fewer hours you have to be out and about. And the slower you go with that engine, the longer you can be about. Do you have those offhand? I have them in front of me, but I'd love you to sort of talk the audience through that.
So you have a power curve of ideal optimum range of where an engine likes to operate at. And the NT300, I think it runs off a 36 volt battery system.
That's what it says.
And then what would happen in that scenario, especially since it's lithium, is you're able to operate in full range, maximum amount of time of the battery, and then it just cuts off. It's like your Ryobi drills, right? It's not like the old flashlights where you can bang them a couple of times and get the light out of it. It's like once that drill battery's dead, it's dead.
When it's gone, it's gone.
Yeah, when it's gone, it's gone. So the lithium battery pack for the NT300, if he has been driving that thing for a couple of years now, he's going to know where his optimal range is, right? And we don't know what size battery he had because his old Torpedo, there was a battery pack that slid in, right? So you could calculate how much battery. But the NT300 has a cable that comes onto it. You put in your own battery pack or their proprietary battery pack, but it's essentially 36 volts. You could have, 3 car batteries. His dinghy isn't big enough for that, but you can't calculate his range and limit it based off of that dinghy motor because he could have had any.
I thought it was interesting when I saw if you go slow, they call it low trolling speed. If you go 2 to 3 miles per hour, which is what I assumed is roughly what that engine could do, you got 30 hours of runtime. I thought maybe only 4 hours. I think 30. So that's interesting. If you go faster, and if you're in a hurry and you're trying to do bad things, you're probably going to go faster. If you go cruise or mid power, you're going 4 to 5 miles an hour. It's still kind of slow, but quicker. And you've only got 4 hours. That goes down to 4 hours. So that comes down real fast. Correct. If you want to go full power, 6 to 6.5 miles an hour, again, you'll get over to Marsh Harbor in 40 minutes at that speed, right? By that point, you only get 1 to 1.5 hours. So not much. So it's just really interesting to know the speed that he might be using at any time and the length of time he knows he's got before that battery's dead at any time of day, whatever he might be doing.
And the only thing I would add to that is they base that off of those numbers off of a standard dinghy, and there's nothing standard about his dinghy. So I'm sure his speeds are a lot slower.
Explain that.
Okay, so a rigid inflatable dinghy that's what RIB stands for, rigid inflatable, and that they're rubber sides. The whole design on them, almost anything is more modern. There's a kind of reason why Boss went out of business. But his is just a bathtub floating through the water. It's hard fiberglass. It is only 120 pounds, but when you look at the front of the boat, it doesn't have a deep V in the front like a lot of the ribs do for getting up on plane, right? So he kind of beats the water into submission with his dinghy, where the rest of us are right on top of it. So yeah, I don't think, because when I saw those stats, I'm like, okay, maybe he was going fast enough in the dinghy at 5 knots to hit like a wake from another boat to cause somebody to bounce. But he's not moving that dinghy that fast with that amount of weight in it.
Yeah. And if something nefarious happened afterwards, and none of Brian's story is, if none of Brian's story is true, he's got not a whole lot of time to ping around the Sea of Abaco in that dinghy in the dark. If he's mid-power, he's got 6 to 6.5 hours, but he's already been out. They've
got just under 20 minutes left of this, guy. She certainly went out big time yesterday when she did this, all the day before. But like I said earlier, I did speed it up just slightly. If I was to go up one more, you wouldn't be able to hear them talking properly because the speed would just be too fast.
already been out down to Tahiti Beach and then all the way back another quarter mile, maybe half mile into Abaco Inn and back out again, and maybe all the way back to Soulmate. So the battery use has already been at play during that day. So it's not going to be full battery power at the time anything nefarious might have happened on board Soulmate. So now that we've got sort of the battery issue out of the way, I want to talk a little bit about the life vests, because when we spoke with Pete Calling, who is one of the fire and rescue guys who was first to spend some time with Brian, he mentioned that he saw 2 life vests in the bottom of the dinghy. And I checked back with him and I said, Pete, did you see them in the bottom of the dinghy, or did you see them stowed in the front stowage area that's behind a little, stowage door? And he said, no, they were right there in the bottom of the dinghy. And then you brought something interesting to my attention about Coast Guard approved life jackets. They almost all, if not all, have one very specific feature right up here, close to your mouth. And what is it?
Yeah, the whistle.
The whistle.
So I've been trying for a couple of nights now to get permission from everybody in the anchorage to do a sound travel over water test, right? Because where I am is pretty much the entire length behind me, which you can't see at night here, but to land over there is the entire length of that Abaco Sea area. And so I wanted to know, I do not know how far sound travels on water, but I know I can hear a dog barking on that beach in the right conditions.
I can hear sound traveling on water a mile away where I'm from. And I'll tell you something, the higher pitched it is, the more you're going to hear it. And he's already put himself on record with Fire and Rescue that where he says, this is about the area where Lynette went overboard. He says it's 1,000 meters to Soulmate. So we're talking about, 1,000 yards. It's 1,000 yards. So we're only talking about 1,000 yards here. I'm pretty sure you can hear a whistle at 1,000 yards over water.
Probably.
Yes, so the information that you just gave about the life vest being on the floor it just doesn't add up to me. Like at some point, was he floating and then just taking inventory of what was in his boat and second guessing what he should have done? Like, why would you pull the life vest out when you're about to land on shore and you're just drifting anyways? But the whistle is just one thing. I mean, it's also the flares. You're getting people who are taking pictures of sunsets. There's been no picture of a flare. There's been no tourist who's like, oh, is that a SpaceX launch? There hasn't been. And that's why from my very first interview till now, back when I was like, hey, find out who saw the flares so we can I was trying to use that to pinpoint a location of where she fell in. Right. Well, now it turns out he knows where she fell in, and now I know the area better. But there's the flares and the whistles and everything he had available to him. There wasn't a logical explanation ever given on how you forgot everything you knew in the last 3 years.
Oh, and as a United States Marine, and you are not in a screaming wind and you are not in big seas at all. It was fairly calm. It was glass calm at exactly that time, just a quarter mile down the shore. I've seen it. We've got video of it being glass calm. Yeah. So, we already know that that's bullshit. The seas were angry, my friend. They were not. And so you could have just jumped out because it's about 4 or 5 feet of water where that dinghy was scooting along the shoreline. You didn't have to go out the channel. You're not a deep drawing vessel. You were drawing about 6 inches. You can scoot along closer to shore and fly, go closer like the crow flies. So you probably could have stood on the bottom where this whole thing was purported to have happened. So the whole thing is just none of it.
But if you've been in an area for 2 months, you learn the depths to cut the channels in a dinghy.
Yes.
So, when we make this tea coming out the channel, there are the boaters out there, and I see them in the comment section. I understand, you follow all the rules and you go out to the end of the T, out to the channel, you go, that's fine. But those are also the people who are wearing their life vests and not drinking and driving. And, right. So the rest of us
in a dinghy,
we know to cut the corner right around the first post or whatever post it is. You don't know when you first get there. I'm not going to say you do, right? But then you watch a dinghy do it. And you're like, oh, okay, I know I can go that far now. And then the next time you watch another local going by in a John boat that cuts the corner even more.
But also, Blaine, honest to God, come on. I mean, look, when you draw 6 inches and you see that you've got 3 feet of water all the way off to a certain point, you're taking that route. You're not going all the way out into the middle of the Sea of Abaco because the channel's marked that way. You know by the charts where the water is safe. That's how most people navigate a dinghy going to shore. You know, that's just kind of the boater's way.
Yeah, if you especially if you've been there 2 months. I will admit, when I first get somewhere, I'm staying in the middle of the channel. I don't know because I can't afford another propeller. I mean, once you've run your propeller into the ground once, you learn that one. But that again, I guess if there's anything I want to say is every part of this investigation, or anybody who's trying to help, or anybody who's trying to figure this out, or they're just following the story, is just ignore everything Brian said and say we have a missing person seen at 6:34 here.
Exactly. Just ignore what he says or take it as the opposite, because he is a complete liar and he thinks he can get away with all of this. And I hope he doesn't. I hope they do find him guilty and, pardon the pun, hook, line and sinker. I hope that's how they catch him. Because, you know, he's just a liar. You can't believe anything anymore that comes out of his mouth. As my saying goes, you always know where you stand with a thief, but you never know where you stand with a liar. And he's a liar. He's arrogant. He's a very short-tempered person. And he won't let anything get in his way if it's something he wants. And, you know, he thinks he's clever by turning these switches off and on at certain times to pretend that, you know, the boat's been there all the time or, you know, whatever. I don't know if it's possible that he could have, say, like, turned all his communications off to pinpoint where he was. And maybe he took the soulmate somewhere and then did away with Lynette in much deeper water. But even if that was the case, in one of my theories, that's what it could have been. Even that she was still, you know, showing up on some water, you know, out of the low tide sort of thing. So, you know, what do you all think? Do you believe him? Do you think he's guilty as hell? Do you think he's going to get any charges against him? Or do you think he's going to walk as a free, innocent man? I don't think so. You know, I don't think he's going to walk free. I hope he don't. I'll be really angry if he does.
And work from there, right? Because I can't find a single thing that he said to me to be truthful yet. It wasn't dark. And he says it wasn't dark. That's the worst part about it. He says in his audio recording me, it was 10 minutes before sunset, and then the sun went down, and then the picture he paints, we're going through this timeline, but we have to go through it at a warp speed, because if I just sit here for 10 minutes, if I just put a camera on for 10 minutes to show people how long 10 minutes is, it's remarkable. I mean, basically, when you cut out the commercials, it's an entire Big Bang Theory episode.
Well, let me tell you as well, I actually sat there and watched it personally in that spot. And it's getting dusky around 7:55, pretty dusky, but it's like 3.5 minutes where it goes, boom. I mean, in 3.5 minutes, you go from dusky, I can still see you, to it's dark. But I mean, you still have a lot of time. And it was nowhere near 8:00 at night to go all the way from the little Abaco Inn through the White Sound Panel and around the corner would have taken all of 12 minutes. So it wouldn't have taken you till 8:00 at night. It wouldn't have taken you till 7:50 at night. It wouldn't have taken you till 7:40 at night. If he says what he says, I left at 7:30, I was on my way, and out she went in the dark. It's not possible.
But, and again, that's why I'm saying we really got to just throw away everything he's saying, because
you can't believe
it doesn't work like that out here. And I understand, like, I watched your podcast where you were sitting up at that one restaurant and you're like, and now it's dark. But also living out here on the water, our eyes adjust as that light goes down. Right now, my outside lights are on for probably the first time in a week to have this interview, but we can see across the water pretty well even when it's dark, because our eyes adjusted as we came down too. So I'm at that point now where
I'm almost done debating that because it's just not debatable. You know,
Right.
just his story and his timeline is impossible with the sun. I mean, we can all screw up our own calendars and clocks, but you can't screw with the sun. The sun's going down when the sun's going down. And when you're on video and on, snaps on iPhones heading out around 7 p.m., you can't mess with the reality of when darkness really falls. And it doesn't fall into his, timeline.
Right. And that's, so what we do for our social media is my wife shows sunsets every night. So we're very familiar with sunset. I mean, if there's ever be somebody who's a professional on sunset, it's my wife who broadcasts them every night of the week for the last 8 months. And then she does afterwards. We have underwater lights under our boat and she turns them on and lets the fish come. But from the time the sun sets till it's dark enough for her to turn on the underwater lights is the hour and a half we have dinner. That's her break in her programming, right? Mm-hmm. There's a lot of time between when somebody that's in Iowa arguing with me online, like, well, they said the sun set at 6:34. It
doesn't matter.
That's not when it gets dark.
That's right. Sun sets, but it's still light out until the sun is long gone deep under the horizon. And you're right. It's around an hour to an hour and a half. So anybody who's looking at sunset, that's not your metric.
But it is amazing what he did in his phone call to me and in his talks to everybody is the amount of breadcrumbs that he threw out there almost as a distraction. He has an electric motor and the world got hung up on that for a week, right? Mm-hmm. They were hung up on how he couldn't start his engine. But he also throws in there, the wife had the spare key in the dry bag. Lynette had it in the dry bag, right? But even if it was on Soulmate, it's just as unavailable to him as if it was in the dry bag. That was like an unnecessary detail that to add in there. Like it's still unattainable, whether it's on the boat or in her bag. It had nothing to do with the story. It had nothing to do. There's these weird things in his story that's just like, why are you telling me where your spare key was?
Right.
Why are you telling me your oar broke when you don't have a bench? Yeah. Why are you telling me you fired a flare, but you didn't use the whistle? You didn't use your cell. Why are you telling me you use your cell phone for a flashlight, but you can't use it?
I think we've come to the determination that anybody who's got half a brain can see a lot of holes in his story, and then people like you who have a lot of mariner's brain see the whole thing as a sieve.
Right, and I see a lot of mariners out there too who are like, "Hey, the ocean could do things. You don't know what was going on in that very specific moment," and I want to agree with them. I do, until you start to see everything that we saw now. Right, on day one when that story came out, I'm agreeing with those mariners. We don't know. I'm not saying his story's right. I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm saying we don't know. But now we're starting to know, right? Now, when she fell over in the Abaco Sea and you hear that word sea and you think a big body of water like the Caribbean Sea, and then you realize it's the Abaco bathtub, right? And so I do want to say, I wouldn't even call it a lake. That's a pond.
It's so shallow. Yeah. It's like a big swimming pool. It's like a big swimming pool. And the deepest end is around 8 feet, but it could get to 15 at a high tide in one spot, but it's really shallow. You can see the bottom everywhere.
Yeah. So, from a mariner's perspective now, knowing the lay of the land and all the work you've done to get us actual eyes on the place, there's not one part of the story that makes sense. I mean, we've tried recreating it. There's so many videos we haven't put out trying to recreate things that it just makes us look silly. Like me and my neighbor boats are invested in protecting the boater's lifestyle and making sure that the islands, that we do get answers to this, because eventually as we travel to these islands and people keep doing stupid stuff in their islands, they're going to stop letting us in. Right. So there is a personal investment in this to get answers and to make sure that people aren't scared off from boating because this happened when you're not bouncing off a dinghy that goes 2 miles per hour in 4 feet of water on a night where we both have seen footage of standard waves.
Well, that's why I keep saying TikTok, Brian Hooker, TikTok. Blaine, I can't thank you enough for just having eyes on this, every single detail, and bringing them to my attention. It's going to take a village, but I don't think things are going to go well for Brian Hooker. It's my own personal opinion, but given everything that I've been able to dig up and what you've dug up, it doesn't look good.
Just help take care of Carly. That's what Lynette would want, right? Lynette left a child behind in this world, and it's all of our job to step up for Lynette and help take care of Carly.
Justice for Lynette. Blaine, thank you so much.
You have a great day.
My great thanks to Blaine Stevenson for helping me to sort of muddle through a lot of the questions that I'm not skilled enough to answer, and then knock down some of the things that I think I might have figured out. He's been just invaluable, and I really appreciate that long conversation. It was very, very informative. I also have some stuff coming up for you in the episodes to come. Specifically, some video I want to share with you. Somebody's surveillance camera was rolling right into the Sea of Abaco. I'm going to show you the things that we have found and the things that we think we see in that video coming up in the episodes to come. So I hope you'll continue to watch and listen, and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss that next episode.
Oh, that's interesting. I like the way she's given us a key piece of future information. I know she was asking for people, if you've got cameras and things that go out into the Abaco Bay, to, send them in. Even if you don't think there's anything there, you could send it in to her. And then they can take a look at it to see, they can work anything from it. So, she'll probably release one later today. So if she does that around about my tea time, I will come back online and redo another video. But thank you for coming in and watching. If you're new here and you subscribed, welcome to the family. And I'll see you on the next one. Thank you very much. And with that, I am out. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.